Today we're here to present the Distinguished Alumnus Award. This is one of the highest honors that Jesuit Dallas can bestow upon an alumnus. And we are so honored to be able to celebrate this occasion with the faculty and the next generation of Jesuit alumni, our current student body. Our Jesuit Alumni Association is comprised of over 9,900 living alums, and our goal is to continue to engage these graduates long after their graduating day and continue to support the Jesuit administration and faculty in the furtherance of our mission to educate quality young men and form men for others. By celebrating the accomplishments of our recipient today, we continue to foster a strong pride within our community and acknowledge the inherent value in recognizing excellence among our alumni. Today marks the 41st presentation of the prestigious award that we will give, and it's presented annually by the Alumni Association to an alumnus whose life exemplifies in an exceptional way the religious, academic, family, and social values set before him during his days at Jesuit Dallas. To be considered for this honor, the recipient must possess remarkable qualities in both spiritual and civic leadership, which have won for him the respect, confidence, and affection of his colleagues in the community. To add a little personal insight into this year's recipient, I would like to invite Jay Fowler from the Jesuit class of 1979, and himself a recipient of this prestigious award in 2008, to come up and share some of his thoughts of his friend and classmate and this year's distinguished alumnus, Mell Shermer. Jay.
Well, good morning. Are there any students in the house? Good morning. Good morning. It's really a tremendous honor to be here on this occasion and to introduce Tom. I could talk for hours about Tom, and it's a funny coincidence, Tom could also talk for hours about Tom. But they've only given me 5 minutes, so I'll touch on just a couple of things. I've known Tom now for over 40 years. We first met when we were freshmen at Jesuit, and those 40 years have gone by really quickly. And through that whole time, I've looked upon Tom as like a slightly older brother. He's always been a little bit taller than me, always been a little funnier than me, always been a little better looking than me, or he was till all his hair fell out. Now, all of you who just went, ooh, some of you are going to be in that position very, very soon. I wanted to share a couple of my early memories of Tom that touch on qualities that we look for in a distinguished alumnus. The first quality I wanted to talk about is reliability. You want a distinguished alumnus, someone who is reliable. And in that regard, I understand now that students don't, that as freshmen you don't do the bug collection anymore, which is a tremendous loss. But for decades, one of the highlights of freshman year biology was doing an insect collection where we had to get 100 bugs, and of all sorts, and none of which I remember now, except the beetles were called Coleoptera. But for some reason, the hardest bug to find, at least the year we did it, was the termite. It was very hard to find termites, which is strange because termites are all over the place. But my new friend, Tom, assured me that he had ready access to a large supply of termites. So don't worry about it. So I didn't. I proceeded to collect the other 99 bugs that I had to collect. And as the time was approaching to turn in the bug collection, I kept asking Tom, hey man, where are my termites? Oh, don't worry, it's in the bag. The termites are coming. And then finally, the day before it was due, Jay, I'm sorry, I can't seem to find any more termites. And so I ended up having to turn in my bug collection with 99 out of 100, no termites, and I learned a little bit about Tom's reliability then. This was This was meant to be a roast, wasn't it? I also wanted to touch on Tom's loyalty. I mean, as a distinguished alum, you want someone who's loyal to his school, loyal to his friends. And near the end of our junior year, the elections were coming up to run for student body president. And so I had the idea that I would run. So I went to Tom and I said, well, yeah, I think I'm going to run for student body president. And I'm hoping you'll support me and we can do this together. And the next thing I know, the guy's running against me. Loyalty, Tom. So, Shakespeare once, there's a line in Shakespeare, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. You can see from just these couple of examples, and as I said, I could go on for a while, that Tom wasn't actually born great. But he has achieved greatness. I think that he's proved over the last 40 years in more ways that I could count, to me, to others of our friends who are here, friends who aren't here, that there is no one who's more reliable, no one who's a more loyal friend, no one who we wouldn't turn to in a time of need. And I can say that if I had to trust my life, or more important, the lives of my children to any one person, it would be to Tom. For all the benefits of my Jesuit education, and they have been many, the greatest benefit has been this friendship over the last 40 years. And that's what I wish for all of you today, that you will find at least one friend amongst your classmates that 40 years from now will still be as close to your heart as Tom is to mine.
I'd like to thank the Alumni Association, Mike Earsing, BJ Ante, Sean McMullen, Tom Garrison, the rest of the Jesuit administration for this great honor. And I want to thank someone who used to be one of my closest and dearest friends, Jay Fowler, himself a distinguished alum, truly distinguished alum for that kind and complex introduction. Finally, I'd like to thank George Strong and his group and all the folks who took part in that video, my wife Mickey, Tom Walsh, my partner, Craig Smith, David Oglesby, and my kids. Really appreciate y'all doing that. I view myself as an improbable recipient of this honor. I'll explain that in a moment, but we're living in a very improbable time. The Cubs just won the World Series. The Pope is a Jesuit, and there's a lot of other unexpected things happening over the last few months. But what's improbable about me getting this honor, being introduced by one of my own classmates from the class of 1979, is that when Jay and I graduated from Jesuit, for a time we were banned from the alumni list. Banned from the alumni list. How'd that happen? Well, because of a prank. Don't get any ideas. Because of a prank that one of our class, or several of our classmates did at graduation. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can come ask me about it later. But at some point, we got put back on the alumni roll, or I guess I wouldn't be eligible for this. So I'm going to speak to you this morning for a few minutes about the improbable. First, my improbable career at Jesuit. Second, my improbable legal career. And finally, how the 500-year-old Jesuit education is improbably the best thing to ever happen to the internet. And I'll get to that. Now, when I started as a freshman, the only thing I knew I really wanted to do was play college basketball. Now, someone's stolen my line on this, but that took a bad turn when I was cut from the freshman team. But I knew I could be a track star. That took a bad turn too when after the first 2 weeks of practice, the coach turned to me and says, "Tom, are you trying out for the team or are you just here for the exercise?" So So I found my way onto the debate team, which was predictable, but even then improbable. Everyone thinks the debate team is just a farm team for lawyers. Yet I was convinced I wanted to be a school teacher. In fact, I wanted to be a school teacher and come back and teach at Jesuit. I wanted to be just like David Oglesby or Father Clyde LeBlanc. They inspired me and I wanted to be like them. But the debate team was improbable for another reason too. When I was in school, I stuttered. It was hard for me to get the words out. It was scary to talk in front of people. For me to be a debater was like being a swimmer who was afraid of the water or an acrobat who was afraid of heights. Yet somehow I did it. Even if I wasn't as good as Jay Fowler, I was good enough. But by far the most improbable thing I did at Jesuit was in some ways the most typical thing and the most important thing. I met a girl, an Ursuline girl named Mickey. We went to homecoming together my senior year, just about this time, 38 years ago, and then to prom, and then, well, everything else. We celebrate our 33rd wedding anniversary this past July. So what might any of that mean for any of you? I bet if you think about it, each of you has something unlikely or improbable about you being here. Maybe you struggled in school academically. Maybe your parents didn't think they could afford Jesuit. Maybe you wanted to go somewhere else because you didn't feel like you would fit in here. Regardless of your personal circumstances, however, it's improbable that you're all here. Now, how can that be? It's improbable because most of the world's population has no chance to go to a school like this, or even close to it. In the world population, only 1% graduate from college. Yet each of you is at a school with college prep in the name. Think about it. If this room were the population of the world, 12 of you would go to college and graduate. 12 of you. Each of you, however improbably, is privileged and lucky to be here. My career as a trial lawyer is improbable. My dad could not stand lawyers. The last thing he wanted was for me to be a lawyer. He delighted in the old joke of what would happen if God and Satan got into a lawsuit. Satan would win, of course, because all the best lawyers were in hell. Even when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be an English professor. I wanted to wear a tweed jacket and smoke a pipe. Another way of saying this about my time at Jesuit and my career as a lawyer is captured by the old joke. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Yes, there is some certainty in the rest of your day, what classes you will go to, what time you finish, what time you'll go home. There's certainty that the Rangers are going to beat the hell out of Berkner on Friday night. Am I right about that? But everything else is going to unfold for you in improbable ways. Make plans, certainly. Make plans. But God will laugh at them. Don't be afraid of that. And don't be afraid to laugh along. The final improbability I want to talk to you about today is why your experience right now at Jesuit is one of the most important things to happen to the internet, really. We live in a world today where we have so much more information available to us, yet we seem to know so much less. We no longer have arguments about who won the 1974 Super Bowl or what movie got the best picture in 1987, because every answer is just a smartphone search away. And yet in recent years, we're having many more arguments about things that ought to be inarguable. That vaccines work, that our president was born in the United States, that the planet is getting warmer, and some of that is the result of human activity. All of these facts are indisputably true, yet we live in an era where a smartphone swipe or click of a computer away can take you to some source of knowledge that says otherwise. You can go to your computer or your smartphone and not get the news, but your news, the news you want to hear from a certain perspective or approach. It might seem improbable that a Catholic school like Jesuit would so well equip you to deal with what really is a crisis of reason, the inability to separate fact from fiction. That at first blush may have seem to have nothing to do with theology. But to me, the fundamental and perhaps improbable takeaway from my time at Jesuit is that it is possible by using your mind, your intelligence, to separate fact from fiction, to separate sense from nonsense. Because for many centuries, the Jesuits have been doing just that. They've been asking the hard questions, and where the issues were not ones of faith, demanding strict proof. The list of Jesuit priests who were leading scientists from the 16th century on is lengthy. Jesuit priests were responsible for key discoveries in physics, astronomy, paleontology. And it's not about not asking hard questions or failing to take on controversial subjects. The Jesuits have been doing that for years as well, from St. Ignatius to Father Daniel Berrigan, a Jesuit who died a few months ago and was a leading opponent of nuclear arms, who was jailed over and over again in his life in the cause of peace. So at Jesuit, faith is not elevated above reason. Both are viewed as gifts from God. And at Jesuit, we know there are truths we can discern from using our minds. That's why you study science and math. You don't study Catholic science or Christian math. There's no Catholic history. It's just history. And the power of our intellects, which is all about nurturing, and Jesuit is all about nurturing and developing, is not inconsistent with what you hear about every day in theology. Concepts like the magis, or the greater good. The school's motto, man for others. Your mind is as important to living these words as your heart. The second profile of the Jesuit graduate is intellectually competent. Because after all, being intelligent allows you to help someone in need and can turn a good heart into a lasting good deed, one that will be effective and meaningful. Because it turns out that we're all called upon to answer a question that has been asked in Christian and secular philosophy ever since it was first asked in the ancient words of the Bible thousands of years ago. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother's keeper? A question who is improbable when asked from the perspective of Cain, who first asked about it concerning his brother Abel. He asked that question hoping that the answer would be no. I'm not my brother's keeper. But at Jesuit, your heart and your mind should tell you that the only answer to that question, am I my brother's keeper, is a resounding yes. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. And that is something that you do not have to look up on the internet. Thank you to everyone for this wonderful recognition. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.